I kept telling myself, I want to be a novelist, but I can't. So what's the next thing that I could be that would make me happy? Hi everyone and welcome to my channel. My name is Isabel. I am an aspiring author and a reader, and you can also find me on Instagram at intothewords_online. Today's video will be a reflection on my writing journey throughout 2020, and it has definitely been a journey. I have learned certain things about myself that I didn't know at the beginning of the year, and I have also done some things that I'm proud of. I've done some things I'm not so proud of, but overall I have definitely learned a lot about myself and my writing process and what my goals are for the future. If you would like to hear about my goals for 2021, I will be making a video about that will be going up next week. So please subscribe and hit the notification button so that you'll see that next video when it comes out as well. So let's take it back to the beginning of the year. At the beginning of 2020, I was at a point where a lot of things were about to change. So I was working a full-time job in an area that was fine, but it wasn't anything I was too interested in. I didn't see myself having a long-term career in that area, and I felt like I needed a career change. Also, I was about to get married and I was about to move in with my husband and his family. Then I decided now's the time to stop that job that I'm not passionate about and try to find a career that I would really love. Of course, then COVID hit and life changed dramatically for everybody. Here I was at home doing absolutely nothing and trying to figure out what my next move would be. Now, I had always known that I wanted to be a novelist ever since I was about 12 or 13. I was interested in writing, but at the beginning of the year, I wasn't actively writing, and I hadn't been writing for a little while. A couple of years ago, I wasn't feeling very creative, and I was in a point in my life where I felt like I didn't really have the time to try to rediscover a creative side of myself between finishing my master's degree and then having a full-time job and then commuting every day. And writing wasn't really a part of my life at the beginning of the year, even though I knew it was something I was interested in. I had kind of gotten it into my head that you just can't be a full-time novelist or can't have that as a career that sustains you financially. And I had gotten this idea from many places. Maybe that's a topic for another video, but essentially I started this year out with the mindset that I knew I wanted to be a writer, but there was no way that I could do that as my primary full-time job. You know, once I'd quit my job and once COVID had kind of shut down other options for me, I found myself at home all the time, not really doing much, and I decided to give writing a go again. So I do know, looking back at my Word documents, that in April, I did create a brand new Word document called Horror Story, and that was actually the initial seeds of the horror novel that I did go on to work on during Nanowrimo of 2020. But at that point in April, I basically just wrote down the initial idea and then stepped away from it and decided that it wasn't something I could see myself doing because I had just never written horror before. I just didn't think it was for me, even though I had this idea that it did kind of intrigue me. I wasn't even sure if I had it in me to write a novel, and I especially wasn't sure if I had it in me to write a horror novel. Over the summer, I did pick up a short story that I had written a couple of years ago, and I decided to do a revision of that and see where I could take it. Because basically with novels, I've tried writing projects in the past, and I've written a couple of first drafts of things, but I haven't taken them very far beyond that. So I thought a short story might be a good way to practice every stage of the writing process. So I did actually polish up this short story in the summer, and I ended up sending it to a few online magazines or journals in the fall. Over the course of September, October, and November, I did end up getting, a few rejections for that, so it didn't end up being published anywhere, but it was actually a fun process to do that anyway. I found it actually a weirdly encouraging process to get the rejections because it made me realize that it was real, that I had written this story and I had submitted it and people had actually read it. So even though it wasn't a good fit for any of those places I sent it to, it was just a really encouraging process. That is where I started to realize that being a professional writer is something I did want to pursue. And then in September, I started to get more ideas for that horror novel that I had thought of in April. So I started to write down some more of these ideas. I free wrote a number of scenes. I ended up getting some momentum going with that project, and I ended up writing 13,000 words. I felt like I could go somewhere with that project. Basically, my problem in the past had been trying to take an idea into full novel form. I can often get it to the point where it would be, 20, 30, maybe even 40,000 words, but I found it really hard to be able to make an idea big enough to feel like a novel. But with this idea, I felt like I could develop it enough, potentially. So over the course of October, I worked a lot on my outline, and I had actually never tried outlining before. I always thought I was a pantser, or at least some kind of hybrid, and to some extent I am still a hybrid, but I realized that I actually really enjoyed the outlining process, and it made the whole prospect of writing a novel, and especially writing the first draft, seem way less daunting. So I decided to participate in Nanowrimo, National Novel Writing Month, where you write 50,000 words in the month of November. And I did finish the challenge. I finished my 50,000 words on November 23rd. That was great. I was so excited that I actually ended up finishing early. It was a very eye-opening experience to do NaNoWriMo. It was difficult. I definitely didn't enjoy every minute of it, but because I did have that outline, I could just tell myself, just write the next scene, just keep going. My best writing day was actually 7,000 words in one day, which I had never done before, so that was really exciting. I did step away from the project for a couple of weeks in December, just to let myself, obviously have rest, refresh after all that hard work. And then as I film this, it is December 28th. I have started the revision process. I have a pretty good idea of a couple of subplots that I'm adding in, because basically the original first draft had no subplots. So right now I'm just in the process of outlining that second draft, and then hopefully in the next couple of weeks I can start to write those new scenes. The last thing I want to talk about in this video is actually mindset and being truthful with yourself about what you really want out of life. Because I think for me that's the biggest shift that has happened this year. Basically, at the beginning of the year, like I said, I was trying to find a career that I could do alongside writing. I kept telling myself, I want to be a novelist, but I can't. So what's the next thing that I could be that would make me happy? But the truth is, there isn't anything else. For me, I've never had anything that I've wanted to be career-wise as much as a novelist. And so I just kept going in circles because I wasn't facing the fact that nothing else stood as high on my list of priorities, career-wise and creativity-wise, as writing. There are many other things I could do, yes, but there was nothing else that would make me happy. That's why I was just going in circles, trying to find something else, but not able to, because I was denying the one thing that I actually did want to do. I had basically been telling myself this narrative that there's one way to make writing your career, and I felt like I was not at a point in my life where I would find success through that particular path anytime soon. But I think eventually I was circling closer and closer to the truth of what I actually wanted. And it was kind of solidified one day when I was watching Sarah Cannon's video on her Heart Breathings channel about her writing journey and her journey to success as an author. And she talked about not making decisions out of fear. I realized that I had been making decisions out of fear. I had been assuming that I couldn't be a successful novelist. Because of that assumption, I had basically shut down that option for myself. So I decided not to make that assumption anymore. I challenged myself to look at the reality that's out there, and if the reality was that you cannot make a living as a novelist, fine, at least I would have looked. Instead, I started to find lots of authors, especially many indie authors, who had prioritized their writing as their career and they were making it work. And I'm not saying it's easy. I'm not saying that this is everyone's story. I'm not saying that authors who aren't making a living off of their writing are doing something wrong. I realized that there are many ways to become an author, and there are many ways to become a successful one. Not everyone has the same definition of success, and everyone has to decide for themselves what path is best for them. And there are concrete things that you can do in the present to work towards the option that is best for you. That's still a recent realization for me, and I'm still letting that sink in, and I'm really excited to see how that will shape the upcoming year and beyond, of course. I'm at the point now where I'm doing research into all the different paths to becoming a successful author. I'm thinking about what success means to me. I'm still early on in this process. This is my first novel that I'm taking to a second draft. This is my first writing project that will be more than 50,000 words long. But I decided to create this YouTube channel to document as I go along so that I'll have these videos to look back on of my progress along the way as I work towards hopefully publication, whether that's self-publishing or traditional publishing. I hope that these videos can also be useful to other aspiring authors out there. You can join me and we can inspire each other and keep each other accountable as we work towards our goals. My next video will be about my writing and reading goals for 2021, so please do subscribe. Check out that video when it comes out next week. Until then, have a great week, and I will see you soon.